Hello YouTube. Today I want to do a short video covering angle grinder safety. This is in response to a request from a subscriber. I believe it was Andre. I'm not sure where he's from, but he was asking me to show how to use an angle grinder without killing yourself. So I've got a couple angle grinders here. Right here is a Milwaukee red one. And this one right here is just a Chinese knockoff. I'm not even sure. Pro Source is the company name. Now you can see right away there's a couple things. There's two different wheels on these. This one has a safety guard on it. This one doesn't. I took the guard off. I don't recommend doing that. Sometimes you get into a job where you have to do something and there's times that the safety guard gets in the way. I had it happen on my table saws in the past where I've had to move something off. It's not recommended. If you know what you're doing and you're going to be ultra careful, you can adjust the safety. I'm not telling someone to do that, but that's why this is like this, because I had to do that. Basically what I'm going to do is I want to show, I'm going to start them up, show how there's a little bit of kick, a little torque when you fire them off, and just kind of do a brief overall of the tools and things to watch out for. Hopefully this will save somebody some fingers. So first off, when you fire them up, they're torquey. They have a lot of power to them, so sometimes they'll jump. And one of the things I would suggest doing, if you've never used an angle grinder before, or if you're not comfortable with it, play with it unplugged like this for a little bit and just kind of get a feel for how it's going to turn on and off. Now this one has an on-off switch on the back by my thumb. So, and a lot of them have a locking mechanism to them. And this one has, I said, cheap Chinese knockoff. It's got one where when I push it in, it kind of engages that auto lock feature. I actually don't like using an auto lock very much on one of these. I kind of want it, when I let go of my hand, I want that thing to be shutting down. They all have the side grab support here to them. Use this. Do not ever try and do one of these things one-handed. We're not John Rambo going to the village with two M60s. You can't handle one of these one-handed. If you try and do something like that, it would hit and bounce off, and God knows what it's going to hit and what it's going to do. So always when you're using one of these, two hands, one on here, nice good grip on it, one on the body of the tool. So I'm going to put safety glasses on. I'm not cutting anything, but I've in the past had these things where I start them up and there might have been something lodged in there and it flies off. So a rule of thumb with these, always have safety glasses. Hearing protection, in my opinion, is a must. If you're doing any kind of extensive cutting, you may also want to put get a face shield. You want to protect your hands, you want to protect your arms, and you want to make sure, like, this would be okay. What you're trying to avoid is anything that would be droopy that could get in and catch. So if you are wearing something that's got a little bit, you got to be mindful of that and pay attention to your surroundings and what you're wearing. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I had a shop teacher when I was a kid. I took wood shop in 7th grade. And, I mean, God bless this guy, because, I mean, he had a wood shop full of dangerous tools, and he had a bunch of freaking idiot 7th graders in there. And he told us, he said, there's no such thing as an accident. There's only a caused occurrence. And that has stuck with me my entire life. And that is the truth. There is no accidents. It's a caused occurrence. Somebody did something that led to that happening. It didn't just happen. So keep that in mind when you're working with tools. If you always think about, what could happen, you'll be protecting yourself. Keep all your fingers. So we're going to go ahead and plug this guy in. And another thing with these, you plug one in, keep a hand on it. Because if something is engaged, this thing's going to take off and go all over the place. In fact, this one right here had an engage on it. When I did that, it had locked itself in. I do not like these self-engages on there, so be very, very mindful of that. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to safety glass up. I'm going to go ahead and put gloves on. And sometimes when I'm doing these demonstrations like this, I'm trying to think ahead and I find myself not, I'm catching myself sometimes. So that's why I want to make sure I'm covering everything for you guys. So we're going to go ahead, hand on it. We're going to plug it in. And then I'm going to give it a little power. Now, these are a little bit loud, so just fair warning, keep your hand on your volume here. It may take off on us. So we're going to give it a little bit of power here. That had locked on. that had locked on. I just wanted you guys to see it is loud. You want hearing protection. It's got a little bit of torque. Now, this one I'm going to demonstrate because this is the worst one. It doesn't have a shield. If I'm going in against something, when you hit, if you're coming in at an angle like this, is when you're going to get your bounce, or if you're grinding in or cutting. Now, the situation that Andre had written me about was he has some metal, looks kind of like an angle iron setup, some modified metal tubing that has some strength to it. I believe he said it was beefy or tough. And he's going to do a cutoff wheel, which I don't have a cutoff wheel set up on one of my tools right now. Though a cutoff wheel is going to be a lot thinner than this, and it's not going to necessarily have all the torque when it's cutting. It's going to kind of cut through. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on that. You just kind of want to guide yourself through it. One of the suggestions I had for you, Andre, if this is something you're going to do, is get a Sawzall. If you can get a hold of one, or reciprocating saw. So I have a demonstration on an earlier video, the Porter Cable Tiger Saw. That's a Sawzall. If you could pick up something like that or rent one, I think it's probably better suited for what you're doing. The metal pipe like that, you can just get a fine tooth. It's almost like a hacksaw blade designed for the Sawzall, fine tooth metal cutting blade. Set up your cuts, you get a nice clean cut, and you don't have to worry about these. Angle grinders have a place, they have a purpose. We have to use them from time to time. At any chance that I can avoid an angle grinder, I do. I just am not a fan of using them. I try to avoid them at all costs. Another thing I want to show you guys, so that's this one here. They have several different types. I'm going to unplug it just for safety. They have several different types of wheels. You can get knotted wheels. If you're taking paint off concrete, sometimes these work well, or paint off like cast iron rails, which I believe is why I had this one set up this way. And I picked up a cheapy one just for my beater one for doing, you know, around ripping down things, so I could just keep a wire wheel on one and didn't have to keep changing out wheels. I'm going to set this off to the side. Now this one here is a much better quality tool. And I'll show you, so I'm going to fire this one up too. So again, hand on it. And then just be mindful of your volume there. I don't want to hurt anybody's ears. Get my plugs aligned right. So this one here is a little bit better. There's a little safety thing down here. You just pull down the little tab, and then you engage right here. Keep this quiet. If you saw that, it jumped a little bit. That's that torque I'm describing. Now this one here, I had this wheel here, the handle. You can usually adjust these either way for whatever kind of cut you're doing. So in the situation I was working in, I probably had it set up where I was coming in against something here and the handle was in the way, so I just swapped the handle out. So we're going to switch the handle over to this side, so you can see you can do that. All of them should have this capability, so you can switch your handles around. Always get yourself in the most comfortable situation you can when you're using any kind of a tool. You want to be relaxed, not necessarily relaxed, but where you're in a situation where you're not stretched out or in an awkward spot or position, because that's when bad stuff starts to happen. And when it does, a lot of times if you've got yourself in an awkward position, you can't react or move fast enough to get out of it. So this one here, it has an engage. I like to see that when I grab and I let go, the tool's done. Now it does have an auto lock, but the button's on the bottom. It doesn't engage like that Chinese knockoff one does. Higher quality tool, better safety on it. So if it's something that you're going to be doing a lot of angle grinding, you might want to look at getting something higher end like a Milwaukee or Makita, and something that has it, and look for that feature. Look for something where, hey, if something bad happened and my hand came off, is the tool going to shut down or is the tool going to continue the run? So we're going to fire this one up too. I'm going to show you the auto feature on this, and I'll keep it brief. So if you're watching this right now, turn your volume a little bit down. I'm going to fire it up. Auto feature on. The auto lock. There's a button on the bottom that I press to make that happen. Now this wheel here is a diamond cutting wheel. And what this is for is when I'm working with concrete, and I use this for tuck pointing. If you see the size on it, it comes out past about an inch, inch and a quarter. And what that's for is when I'm working on the joints the mortar joints in brick, you can get in there and remove stuff real fast, get stuff cut out. If you need to, you can cut right down a brick. You can do whatever you want with these. They're a great tool to have. But again, I avoid them. I try not to do a ton of tuck pointing. It's just not my favorite thing to do. But like I said, I try to avoid the tool if I can. But I'm not scared of it. I'm respectful of it. I respect what it can do. If you feel that you're scared of something, you need to play with it on dry runs, not plugged in, until you're comfortable with it. Don't start using something you're terrified of, because that's just going to get you into problems also. So hopefully that helps. The things to do a recap here. When you turn the tool on, if you're not sure about it, go through all the features, know what each thing does. When I squeeze the trigger, what's going to happen, and how does that trigger release. Make sure you know that. After you plug it in, do a couple of dry fires. You don't need to go cutting anything right away. Get comfortable with it. This is how it feels every time I hit it. Do it a couple of times. That way you know this is what the tool is going to do when I fire it off. When you come in to do your first cut, if you've got an area that it doesn't matter if you could ding it up, go in there and do a couple of test cuts. You know, if it's an area that's going to be part of your cutoff and you don't need that piece, you know, damage it up a little bit, but get yourself an idea how it works. Then come in and do your cut so that you're comfortable with it. Make sure, obviously, you're putting your cutoff wheel on. Make sure you got that nice and tight. Don't do any adjusting to the wheel without having it unplugged. Always remember to unplug your equipment when you're doing any changes to it, because that's how people get hurt a lot too, is they start to make a change and they bump a trigger or something, and there goes a finger. If all possible, use your safety guards. I try and use this as much as possible. The other one, I just wanted to show you, you know, the differences between the two. And sometimes you get into a situation where you have to disable the safety, but it's not recommended. So hopefully that helps, and thanks for your time, guys. Take care.